Good Sunday morning to all of you. Gary Ryan here with today's Fed League Flash. Before we begin, this is kind of take two. Tried to put this together on Friday, did put this together on Friday, and I had some out-of-date information, and thankfully, Sarge and I talked, and he set me straight, got everything correct. So today we are talking about roster limits for this upcoming year. Just kind of clarifying what the roster is going to look like because it's a lot different than it was last year. All right. Okay, so I apologize for the wrong information on the previous video. That's why I pulled the video as soon as I realized, oops. But yeah, so now we have correct information. This is verified with the league. So, all right. So yeah, a lot of you are asking questions online. Hey, this team is signing oodles and oodles of players, but they're not all going to be playing. What's going on with this? Okay, so currently, right now, roster limit is 45, and you're seeing obviously if you go to each team's roster, some have more than others. Right now, Baton Rouge leads the pack with 41 signed to their roster. Port Huron has 40. Blue Ridge has 39. So does Watertown. Then you have Binghamton and Motor City each have 30. Mississippi only 27. But with Mississippi, that's kind of by design. If you go back to the video a couple weeks ago of a much too early look at the Mississippi Seawolves, that's explained why. Joe Pace has a little different philosophy with setting up his roster. So, you're a GM of a team. There's no wrong or right way to do this as long as you're 45 or under. So that is where we are right now. Now, when do rosters get cut? That is kind of depending on when your first game is, depending on what team you are. Rosters have to get cut down to 19 on your active roster. Obviously, if you have a player that's on loan to like the SPHL, for an example, that person will go on your inactive roster, not count against your active roster. But rosters must be cut down to 19, not 23, 19 by 1 o'clock 2 days before your first game. So, in other words, Elmira, Binghamton, Watertown, and Danbury, their deadline for that is Wednesday, October 11th, because they play on Friday. The following Wednesday, October 18th, Motor City, Port Huron, Mississippi, and Blue Ridge have to get things done on 19. And then the last three teams just to play a game, so they get the most time to make the cuts. Columbus and Baton Rouge, their deadline is Tuesday, October 24th. Carolina is Wednesday, October 25th. So hopefully that clarifies that. Now, yeah, your active roster is 19. You can dress 18. If you want to roll the dice, you don't have to dress 18, but it'd be kind of smart to make sure you have an 18 on the ice. So my assumption is most teams, most GMs and coaches will go with 10 forwards, 6 defensemen, 2 goalies. Now, of course, that can change depending on situations with the overall health of your squad, your opponent that day. Maybe you want to have 7 defensemen. Maybe you only want to have 5. So there's room to wiggle and whatnot. But you're going to have a goalie starter and a backup. All right, so it'd be kind of ridiculous to just go out there with one goalie. So Now, so that means you only have one healthy scratch, meaning that I believe most teams will opt for two goalies on their active roster. You can have three, but now you're losing a positional player, and if something happens like injuries or whatnot, what do you do then? I'll answer that question in a minute. All right, so why so low? Last year we had 23. Now it's 19. Well, the answer to that is because teams were kind of stockpiling players, whether they were getting players back on loan or they were out injured for a couple games. Instead of moving them to inactive and reactivating them or whatever, you know, players are kind of getting stockpiled. And so the players would be held, they would have their rights held in reserve. So now this cuts that loophole. And here's an example. If you go to Carolina's roster, you will see Gus Ford is listed on the roster. Not a problem right now because he's one of 45. When it comes time for Carolina to cut down to 19, they have a decision to make because Gus Ford is not playing in North America. He's going to be playing in France. Okay, he can't get moved to the inactive roster. The only way you can get moved to the inactive roster, if you are on loan, is if it is to a North American team. In other words, the ECHL, the SPHL, the AHL, the LNAH. Okay, it has to be a North American team. So Gus Ford does not count to that. So when the time comes, Carolina's going to either have to just release Gus or go to option 2, which is down later on, which we'll discuss. So they can't stockpile Gus, in other words. So the inactive list is only for, again, North American team call-ups, suspensions, and a longer-term IR, like a 15-day IR. So then you're wondering, well, what happens when injuries happen? What happens when there's a suspension? What do we do then? Daniel Amesbury just got suspended for 3 games. So Billy McCreary is going, what do I do now? I'm down a player. All right. Here's where the next thing comes in. There are going to be 14 4-game contracts that each team can offer and sign players to. Now, so this is kind of like a reserve list, but you're probably not going to want to just sign 14 right off the bat because this is like vacation in your workplace. You get to the end of the year, and most places are you can't roll your vacation time over to the next year. You use it or you lose it. This is the same thing here. You sign a player to a 4-game contract that has to be 4 consecutive games. You can't say, oh, I'm going to play Joe Schmo on Friday, October 13th, and then just hold on to him and play him 3 more games in December. Doesn't work that way. It has to be 4 consecutive games. Whether you dress him or not is up to you. But you're signed to the team for 4 games. When the 4 games is reached, that contract is cut. And so now, how do we get to that number? 14. Why 14? 14 times 4 is 56. So basically, you are, in essence, gaining 1 extra player in 4-game increments 14 times. All right. So, again, you have to play 4 consecutive games. Using Danbury as an example, Michael Flanja is on the regular 19 roster. He gets hurt. Evan Lugo is signed to a 4-game contract. You can't have Phalange play, get hurt, and then insert Lugo for 2 games, sit him out, Phalange comes back, and then Lugo plays the next time somebody else gets hurt way down the road. It just doesn't. It's not working that way. So, again, it's a use it or lose it. This is why these GMHL affiliations that a lot of teams are signing, working with the juniors, is going to be so important, because now you've got a talent pool that you can pull from and say, hey, we can use this team that we are affiliated with and primarily sign those guys to these 4-game contracts. So that's how that works. Now, the other thing to factor into everything going on here is once we get to the trade deadline, which is this year is going to be March 4th, that's the first Monday in March. After that point, a lot of players have that are playing in college have finished their seasons. So you can sign up to 3, as it's designated on the FPHL website, rookie Cs, in other words, collegiate rookies. Last year, you saw Stephen Ford and Joshua Sanchez coming for Elmira. In Binghamton, you saw Connor Smith and Andrew Logar, among others. So they can be signed, and that helps you add depth in the home stretch. Again, like this past year, they have to play 5 games in order to be eligible to play in the playoffs. All right. So now you have a lot of players, and I'm mentioning some names to help give them a plug. You got a lot of players who are out there who have tried out in the FPHL camp. That was a couple weeks ago. Didn't hear anything initially, but I'm thinking a lot of these players like Charlie DeBow IV, Jack Hudek, Shea Spanier, players like that, they will probably end up getting signed to these 4-game contracts. Now, the good news is, for them, is, okay, let's say Shea Spanier signs back with the Watertown Wolves. He goes through his 4 games, he's released. He's not necessarily done with the Fed. He could then sign with the Blue Ridge Bobcats for a 4-game contract. His 4 games ends up there. Oh, Carolina needs a goalie. Signs a 4-game contract with Carolina, so on and so forth. Okay, it's a lot of uncertainty for those guys, but there is opportunities for guys like that that I think should be playing in the Fed, that they can get their time in. So that's where we're at. So the big thing is there's no more stockpiling and hiding of extra players. All right. Basically, it's like playing poker at the table. You play the cards you're dealt. And you can consider these 4-game contracts a chance that okay, dealer takes 2, get rid of 2 cards, takes 2 cards. So that's the best analogy I can put with that. So there you go. A lot different this year. A lot more. A lot more finagling that the GMs and owners have to do this year. But the good news is since we have less players on the roster, now each player can get a little bit of a bigger cut of the weekly salary cap, which is $3,700 this year. So, yeah, there's that. There's that on the plus side, and it's always good to be able to make a little bit more money. It's still not a lot of money, but it's a little bit more. Every little bit helps. So I hope that answers your questions. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. I'll do my best to answer them. I'll make sure to, if I don't know, I'll get in touch with Sarge first. But that's where we're at. All right, let me know what you think about this. Leave a comment down below. Hit like and subscribe. Make sure to check me out on Spotify. I'll try to have a Spotify report tomorrow if I can. Definitely on Thursday. And, of course, we're always on Facebook. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Gary Ryan for today's Fed League Flash. Tune in tomorrow where we talk about the Rome Frenzy. History.